right, well, welcome everybody, and I'm going to go over quickly first some things you can do in Google Classroom to give students a better experience and make it less confusing for them, and also for other teachers who might be in your classroom as teachers as well. So I'm going to start with the presentation, and as questions come up, please do type them in the chat. All right, so you'll notice here on this slide, there is a website that you can go to, and we'll put that in the chat, that goes over all of these things because there's a lot to demonstrate, and I don't want to go into the demos, but there's videos for each of these things. And Cubby's here helping as well, and also Chris, so they'll help with answering some questions, or as soon as I go over the slides, I'll pop back in and answer them as well. So here's some things to think about as you're setting up your Google Classroom and you're assigning things to students. One is making sure you're naming your class with the official class name, using your last name as well so that other teachers who are in there can easily see whose class it is. There might be a lot of algebra classes. Using topics to post, using things like numbers or emojis to help students figure out what it is that they're supposed to do. Using the stream just for announcements and putting all of your classwork under the classwork tab, and then assisting students with finding their to-do list and managing their calendar and figuring out what the assignments are for each week, because it can be overwhelming. And also helping them turn off their email notifications if they're feeling just swamped with emails, and using Google Classroom instead. All right, so on the website that I made for this, and that's the bit.ly, that's a link, and I'll also put that in the chat. You will see that there's all kinds of topics here, number 1 through 8. So I'm just going to go over those quickly and talk a little bit about each one of them. And oh, great, Chris, thank you for putting that, and Cubby as well. Okay, so that website has small videos, and I'll go over each of the parts of it and then answer any questions you have. So the first thing to know is that sometimes we have old Google Classrooms that we made as test classrooms or we're using with students last year. It's really helpful if you go and clean up, so you can archive your old classrooms. If you have assignments in those classrooms that you still want to use, by archiving, you still have access to those. So if you had an assignment you used last year and you want to post it again, you'll still be able to get to it and post it on your new classroom. But by archiving, you just clean up your page a bit. If you had any students lingering in old classes, that will really help them to just have their current active classes. And then some of you may have students in your Google Classrooms, your current ones, who are no longer, maybe they've moved away, whatever it is, and you can remove those students from your Google Classroom and just clean up a bit. And that will help you to see, for example, if you're looking and 25 out of 35 students have done the work, you don't want to see students who are no longer active. The second thing is it's very helpful if you go and rename classes, and you can do that from the little, it's hard to see on this slide because it's pink and then the white dots are over the white part. But in the upper corner in your classroom, you can edit the name of the class. Just make sure that it is the official name of your class. So if you're using abbreviations, maybe go in and change that to spell it out. And then in the section line, if you type your last name and then which class period or periods it is, that's helpful not so much for students, but for support teachers who might be co-teachers, because they might have a lot of classrooms that they're looking at, and seeing your last name will help them know which class it is. And then if you haven't added a photo to your Google profile, there's a little example of how you do that. You can just go up when you're in Gmail, for example, go click on your picture and change it to a picture of you so that everyone can see at a glance that this is your Google Classroom, because that picture does show up. All right. Okay, so number 3 is assignments with due dates. So if you put for example, you post in the stream for students and you say, could you please watch this video and then write a paper, and it's due whatever date, and you post that in the classroom stream, it gets lost pretty quickly. It moves on down through the stream. Whereas if you go to classwork, which is where students really want to go to see everything that they need to do in classwork, not in the stream, and you post it and you give it a due date, that's going to be really, really helpful. And you'll see giving it a topic is important as well, and that's the next part. So by giving it a due date, you put it on their Google Calendar, you put it on their to-do list with a due date. Where it says points, you can pull down that arrow and make it ungraded. So even if you schedule like office hours and you put it on as an assignment, it's helpful, and it would be ungraded, of course, and optional. And you can move that each week up. But having that due date puts it on a calendar, and that is very helpful for students to be able to see what's due when. And then in our current situation, if you are able to post your new assignments and materials by the end of the day Monday, then students are able to go on Tuesday and see everything they have to do for the week. And if everybody puts all of their information in Google Classroom with due dates and organized by when that needs to be done, it's very helpful for students. Okay, and then topics. So hopefully everybody's using topics, but if you're not, take a look at my slide here. You can see that I organized it by date. So what was due the week of April 21st. You can drag these all around, the topics and the assignments. It's really nice under classwork. You can set this up. And I have it in reverse chronological order. So you can see on the side there, you've got the week of, you've got each week, and actually, probably would be better if I didn't use week of, I just used the dates, so you could see that over here. And then office hours and syllabus can go on the bottom as topics, and that's actually the next part. Okay, so if you have any questions as I go along, go ahead and put those in to the chat. Or suggestions for ways that you do it that you think is really easy for students to see. But you can see here that I've got the assignments in here. I put the office hours as optional, but I did make it an assignment. If it has a materials icon, it wouldn't have a due date, but it still says you need to read this, you need to watch this. Please continue to research, for example, here. Number 5 here, continue to research, is a continuing assignment, but I'm putting it under April 21st, and I would eventually drag it up to the most current week to remind students to be working on this, it's not due yet. That makes sense. So you can create topics for class resources as well. So I put those on the bottom, things like your syllabus or your office hours, although you could also put those weekly to remind students you're available. And by dragging those to the bottom of the classwork page, you put them in that list. As you see here, all your topics are here, but at the bottom you've got those materials that you plan to use all semester long or all year long. Okay, and that's by adding topics. So you can create a topic for anything and organize that way. This is super helpful to help students see at a glance what you want them to do. You can insert emojis to help guide students as to what you need to do. For example, here for April 7th, if it said you need to watch this video, take this quiz, take these notes, and so you can insert those. And just by right-clicking, you can get the emoji menu and add those in. So, and also using very specific words to signal what you want students to do. And then note that I also here want students to watch a video and take notes on it, but I listed those as separate tasks just so students can see all the steps and all the things that they want to, that they need to do. And if there's something that you assign that there's nothing to turn in, they can just click done to indicate that they've done it, even if they don't turn something in. So instead of maybe grouping 5 different items under one assignment, saying do all 5 of these things to complete the assignment, you break them out one by one. And then notice that I also numbered them so that you can see that assignments are related. The math quiz has nothing to do with this other activity. It also helps you because you can search your Google Drive to see what students have turned in related to that task. So if you wanted to number assignments, you can do that. Let's see, any questions? Yeah, I like the numbering. I got that from Alice Keeler, who has a great blog on Google Classroom. And so if a student is saying, I think I forgot an assignment, or where do I find that? You can say, just look for, number 6. And it has all the materials. It groups them together too. So for assignment number 6, you're also saying, oh, here's the video that goes with assignment number 6. Here is the other resource that you need. So it's easy to find all of those. You can set up your office hours or your Google Meets now with Google Classroom. So you can just turn on the Google Meet button inside Classroom. I've got directions there, but basically you just go to your settings. You can leave it on or off so that there's a link for students to go to. And the sheet here also explains how Google Meet works through Google Classroom. That is changing every day, so there are new updates all the time. But that is one way to post your office hours. You can post the office hours as an ungraded assignment with the word optional, and that puts it on student calendars and to-do lists as well. And then you can just drag that assignment up to the next week so you don't have to reschedule it if it's the same time every week, and change the due date. And then finally, help students understand how to manage their Google Classroom. Direct them to their to-do list, which is on the main page, which lists everything for every class. And things will be on their to-do list until they either do them and turn them in or click done. And so that will help them to keep track of their tasks. We're trying not to overwhelm students, and also to have things really organized so that they can see what they need to do, exactly what they need to do. There's also a View Your Work button under Classwork. Oh, and then one thing to know is you want to keep reminding students not to just go into Google Classroom and look at their stream. I wish there was some way to have the Classwork tab come up first, but unfortunately they need to click that in order to see all their work. View Your Work is in a particular class. And then if you assign work with due dates, you can see the example here. It goes right on their calendar, and they can see what needs to be done each day and what needs to be turned in. And the different classes are different colors. And so using the calendar is really nice. And then the very last thing before we discuss is students are feeling overwhelmed with email and saying, I wish my teacher would stop sending me so much email, but they're the ones who control that. So they can have to go into their settings and toggle off some of the emails. And so if you take a look at this slide, you can see what it is that students can turn off. Maybe they want to turn off all of their emails and just check Google Classroom or use their to-do list. Maybe they only want an email when they have returned work or feedback. So they control that. We don't as the teacher in Google Classroom. As do you control your Google Classroom notifications if you're getting too many from other teachers. All right. So what questions do you have, or tips, or is there anything that I'm missing or that you think is off base? Like, no, it's better if you organize it this way. Anything you want to see demonstrated, like, oh, how do you create a topic in Google Classroom? Or middle and high school, actually, Chris, it is. There are some ways to use it with Seesaw for elementary. Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll pop in here too. So usually we see Google Classroom used at 3rd grade or above, because at 3rd grade, the students start getting active like email accounts, and they are more adept at logging into Google. which is the first barrier of getting into Google Classroom, is actually logging into Google. So at third grade, we find the kids are able to log into Chromebooks, log into Google. So we have lots of teachers actually at the third grade level who are using Google Classroom just because it's a really great way to push out Google Doc assignments, Google Slide assignments, give out templates, have the kids work on it. At third through fifth grade, the main learning management system right now is Seesaw for parent communication and all of that organization. But teachers are still using Google Classroom to manage their Google Docs in the classroom as well. So yeah, that's a good question. I want to also say that I forgot what I was going to say. I'll think of it. I'll think of it.
Let me know if you think of it. Go ahead and throw more questions in the chat. But I'll go ahead and demo how to do the topics, because that is a really great way to organize your tabs, is to look at the topics
Right.
and make sure that you're setting those up. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Google Classroom.
Go show it.
Yeah. So good. So you should be seeing now that, see, here's a stream where I don't want to be posting things. If I type right here, I'm not really assigning work. I'm just kind of notifying students. And so we want to be in the classwork where we can set this all up and see I've got my topics. So I've got this research paper here that's a draft, and it's not under any topic. I could create a new topic. I'm going to go edit this one. And or I could choose one of these, or I could just drag it to put it under one of these. But I'm going to create a new topic. So we'll call this April, let's see, what's 21st. So this week will be my topic. And then I'll assign that. So normally if I had students in this book club right now, they would all be getting an email unless they've turned their notifications off. So, but you can see here, it puts April 21st up here. I could say, oh, this actually, we're going to do this week. So I could drag that up. I could drag this whole section down and organize by topic over here, if that makes sense. So just setting up those topics in a good way is great. And then, oh, while I'm at it, why don't I rename this? I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna right click and add an emoji. So I've got my little emojis there. And like, I like the pencil one for you need to write something, for example. And I could move that to the other side by copying and pasting, but just an example of how you can add some little pictures to help students figure out what it is that they need to do.
And that's really what we're going for here, is trying to help students understand what's really going on. You know, when you think about it, Google Classroom is really designed for a hybrid learning environment, not a completely online learning environment. So we're kind of stretching the system right now to like the limits of its capabilities. And so all these little things and the way that we use Google Classroom, like how we name our classes, how we name our assignments, how we name our topics, how we organize things, that is really important in this time so that the students can actually navigate it, so that you can keep it organized. And it just looks very different than it would if you were just like in class, because in class you can just be like, hey, go to Google Classroom and go check this out, and kids will be like, oh yeah, I can do that. But if it's just all online, we need to kind of rethink the way that we're using our tools, and we need to be much more specific about the way that we're labeling things to make it easier for our users to navigate.
Right. And one thing with the how you're naming your classes, so we have, for example, the English learner teachers or support teachers who are seeing many classes, and it can get confusing. So that's why we're asking if you would edit your class names for it to be not an abbreviation, for example, and put your last name here in section. You might have one class for each period. You might be lumping them together, which is fine, but just making sure that's visible to co-teachers. And then also cleaning up your old classrooms so students aren't seeing classes they're not in. Now, the students can unenroll themselves, but they might not know to do that. If they've got lots of old assignments from an old Google Classroom on their to-do list, that's going to be confusing. So what tricks and tips have you found? What's not on that list? Yeah, go ahead, Ava.
I just have a general question, I guess, to everybody around managing the assignments that kids submit, because so I've been working with the EL kids around, how to upload, download, and they're trying to figure out how to submit assignments that they've done. So I've received like a plethora of either a photograph on a phone, or they email, just they answer questions in an email. Some of them will upload, will do the work in the Google Classroom. So how are people managing that? How are you all checking for assignments in the Google Classrooms to sort of make it all kind of consistent and easy, I guess?
Are you asking like how?
I think Miranda, it's kind of a combination of two things. A, kids understanding how to do that, and then B, teachers understanding how to look at those assignments. So where do you go as a teacher to look at the assignments that have been submitted into Google Classroom? Because right now I'm kind of between Google Classroom, my email, and also Hangout, messages that come up alongside my calendar as the kids are kind of texting me.
If I can jump in here, I think the more specific that we can be when we are assigning the assignment, the better it's going to be. So my favorite thing to do is to use a Google Doc template or a Google Slide template to push out to the students so that they can respond within the thing that I've sent them. And that way you're getting a consistent response back as to like what it actually looks like. Because if you just put an assignment out there, they're going to click the plus button and they're going to add either a Google Doc or a PDF or a picture from their phone or add whatever. But if you can send them a template, like I want you to write in this Google Doc, then that will really help standardize the responses that you're getting. I don't know if Miranda, you wanted to show that template feature.
Yeah, well, so let me show you. So if you're creating an assignment and you're asking them to do something like answer these questions, and I've had some really good feedback from teachers helping students saying like, please don't fill up this instructions field with like 12 things, or write 4 paragraphs here, because that's very hard to understand. But then when you're either adding or creating from Google Drive, you can put in the template. So for example, you've already listed all the questions and you're adding that. You're adding those questions. Here, I'll add that. And then you're saying, make a copy for every student. So every student gets their own copy of that document, those questions with their name on it. And then it's clear to them that they need to open that document, type their answers, and submit. And then it's really easy then also for the teacher to go in and say, okay, this is how many people have turned this in. So by clicking on the assignment, I can see I've assigned it to 2 students. Nobody's turned it in yet. I can view it and see what I've gotten from my students. So I could go in and see their work. So just by assigning as consistently as you can and giving students a clear task or document to do, I think that is really helpful.
And one of the new features of Google Classroom that I've been working with teachers on a lot is the new rubric feature. So as you're creating an assignment, you can also create a rubric so that when you're going through and grading, it'll show up on the right side, and you can just click like proficient, basic, proficient, excellent, just like you would do with rubrics. And there's a video on losdlogic.org about rubrics and how to do them. And it's just something that I think is really useful as you're going, and it's grayed out right now. But you can create a rubric, and then as you are flipping through assignments, you can just quickly give a score on the right. So play around with that rubric feature, and that will definitely streamline your feedback process as well.
Like,
And
perfect. Thank you.
Great. And just in general, that the LOSD Logic site is an awesome place to go to be looking for all these videos and resources. So I want to make sure everybody knows about that. Let's see what other, perfect, there's the link. What other questions or comments? Any other thoughts on things you'd like to see? What are some things that students are saying that they're confused about? Okay. Well, we've got just a couple of minutes left. I'm gonna, while you're thinking about, oh, good, okay. When you make comments on student work, they get an email if they have all of their notifications turned on. So they control how many emails they get and what they get them for. So let me head over here for a second. You can see right here, do you want emails when somebody comments on your post? You get a returned work and grades from your teacher, work and other posts from teachers. So students actually set up what they get emails about, and they can turn all their emails off and just check Google Classroom, or they can choose to leave certain ones on. And then not everything is on the to-do list. So if things are assigned without a due date, or they're posted as material, or they're typed in the stream. And so that's kind of the purpose of this session, is to say, you know, if you want students to do something, don't just type it into the stream, because it won't show up on their to-do list. Has everybody seen the to-do list? I'm gonna head over. It actually won't be exactly like this, because I'm seeing as a teacher, and I could switch over to student. But if I'm on my Google Classroom, and I've got a variety of things going on here, but students will see their classes. They click up here. They've got a calendar, which is awesome if they have dated assignments that are due on certain times, and also for office hours. But then if I go to the to-do list, I have my teaching to-do list. I have my enrolled to-do list. So this is what students see, and it looks like I have lots of overdue assignments here. Mrs. Light will not be pleased with me. And I can see what I've done and turned in already. So I did do some of my work, although some of it was late. And then if I slide down, I see there's a lot of stuff with no due dates, which if you're a student, that could be kind of confusing. And students can go in and say that they've done stuff if it shows up as missing, but they've done it. But unless they turn it in, the teacher won't see it. Yeah, thanks, Cubby. That stop the emails link I made. Students are kind of freaking out. They're like, why are my teachers emailing me so much? And I think we're saying, we're not. It's just you're getting an email every time we do anything in Google Classroom.
Yeah, and on the LOSD Logic site under the Google Classroom page, there is a video that Miranda made about where is my stuff in Google Classroom and how do I navigate this? And she made that for students, so you could go and view that video and you could share that with them if you'd like. That would be a helpful thing for them. Yeah, just to help them see where's my to-do list. There's a lot of ways to check to see what they have to do every week. But if teachers are really careful about consistently assigning everything, adding due dates, organizing by topic, putting those new assignments at the top, making it really clear what the instructions are, that should really help them out. All right, I think we are
out of time, but feel free to email me or get in touch if you have questions or suggestions. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording in just a second.